Monday morning, everyone. Happy belated Mother's Day to all of the amazing mothers out there. Sandy, Melinda, happy Mother's Day or belated Mother's Day to you guys. You guys listening to Author Talk with me, Amy, Sandy, Russell, and our lovely guest today is Zachary. So let's dive into the weekend, everybody, shall we? I'm currently at my mom's house. As you can see, we have all the wonderful fabric, beautiful background that everyone loves whenever I'm here at my mom's. So I came down. Joshua is doing like 2 weeks of conferences back to back. So I'm at my mom's. But this Wednesday, we are going to the Red Hot Chili Peppers concert. So that's why I am here, because that's a Christmas gift, right? Nothing like 5 months later, but that is his Christmas gift. My kids made me some Mother's Day items from school, but they were not for me, they were for their dad. So that's kind of how my Mother's Day kicked off. But I did get to go to the Whitty Museum yesterday, which I've never actually been to growing up in San Antonio. You would think that I've been to it. I haven't. So we went and saw the dinosaurs because the girls love it. And just the people there, the environment, Texas history, and everything. So it was amazing. It was so much fun. Now I'm here with my mom. I'm probably going to take my mom to get a Starbucks later after this. I took her to dinner when I came into town on Friday for Mother's Day. But what did all of you guys do? Russell, what did you do for Melinda for Mother's Day? I'm dying to know.
Well, May is always the worst nightmare in my life because I have Mother's Day, I have my wife's birthday, I have our wedding anniversary, all in May, and I always screw them all up. And so I'm always in trouble for the whole month.
Yeah.
And that's been true.
Yay, Melinda.
And this was Saturday was our 40th wedding anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Mazel Tov.
I know, right? And so we had made a prior agreement as to what we wanted as our gifts. And so I actually took care of that ahead of time to try to avoid trouble.
Oh,
But
I love it.
we flew to Houston. Zachary, I'm in Atlanta. We flew to Houston, spent all Friday night partying with a bunch of our Houston friends. Then we spent Saturday and Sunday with our daughter and our 3 grandchildren. And then we landed in Atlanta last night about 12:30 in the morning. I guess Monday morning. So we had a great time. I still have a birthday of hers I've got to take care of and get out of trouble, but I made it through the first 2 without trouble. So I have managed.
It may be the year of no matches.
Yeah,
I like it.
I'm
Maybe
not
the
going
year
to be lucky enough for that.
I'm hopeful, Russell. I'm hopeful.
Russell, you always live such an exciting life. It's kind of like I like to vicariously live your life with you. You do a lot of fun stuff.
So what you do,
Sam? I had a great weekend, but I was right here at home, and my kids came to visit me for Mother's Day. I have 4 sons. So 3 of them came. One of them did not come, but I just saw him a couple weeks ago. So he said, I'm not coming back again not just for Mother's Day, but I'm not coming back again in 2 weeks. So, okay. I did post on Facebook the beautiful, beautiful flowers that my sons gave me, which they know I love flowers. So that's my annual Mother's Day gift. But just having them here, eating, cooking meals, and it was really also a celebration of my victory over breast cancer. And so one of them gave me a shirt that said I won. I've got a bracelet that's got the boxing glove on it, all this kind of stuff. So it was a big celebration for all of us. And we had a great weekend.
That's wonderful. Congratulations, Sandy.
Thank you, Zach. Is it Zachary or Zach?
Oh, just call me Zach. Zachary sounds so formal.
Thank you, Zach.
My pleasure. You too. Thank you. Good to meet everyone here. Really, this weekend was really nice. I've been running around so much the last few weekends. I've been traveling here and there, so it was good to just have a quiet time. I visited my parents, stay with them for the weekend. We brought my grandmother in for Mother's Day, just kind of had a family brunch all together, got my mom flowers. We had a nice time. My sister and I gave her a gift card. Everything's kind of ramping up because we got my sister's wedding in just a couple weeks. So everyone's really excited for that. So we are.
Are they excited? Has there been any drama yet? There's nothing worse about drama. Every wedding has drama.
There's really been no drama besides like just getting everything ready. Everything's been smooth. Everything's been going. Everyone's happy. It's really just like, let's do this thing and just get through and have a fun time. So that's really what's going on right now.
Zach, where are you located? You're in Florida, right?
I am in Florida. I'm in southern Florida in the Tri-County area.
So in the Miami area, Miami, Fort Lauderdale kind of area?
Fort Lauderdale, exactly, actually. I'm actually recording this in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Oh my God.
So you're down on the canals.
Pretty much.
I love that part of Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
There a few days.
I love that whole area, and I lived in Florida for years, and now I live in Houston. But I never realized how beautiful that Miami Beach is. And I went on a cruise a couple of years ago, and leaving there and looking back on that, I'm like, that is the most beautiful sight I've ever seen. So I love Lauderdale and Miami Beach.
Absolutely fantastic spots. Really scenic, really beautiful. That kind of covers for like that. It's Florida.
So, do you practice law in Fort Lauderdale? Where do you practice law?
In Fort Lauderdale, I actually work for the state, for the Guardian office.
Oh, in the Guardian, in minor guardianships?
Yep. It's for the state. It's for it's dependency work. But it's tough stuff. Not gonna lie.
Yes, I've done many battles with guys like you in my 40 years of practice. Because usually I'm the guy that you're after. I'm usually the one they hired.
I definitely respect it.
So
I love
Zach, we have to thank the people that are listening to us on the podcast. We're top 10 independent book podcast in America. We're very honored by it. We want to thank you for listening to us. Amy, where do they find us?
Yes,
and I even can find us now on the podcast channel.
Russell's moving up, you guys. Russell is moving up. So you can find us anywhere that you can listen to a podcast. So Amazon Music, Good Pod, Spotify, Google, all of those, Apple, all of those, you can find us and listen to us. Remember, it is our new branding, which is the crimson, red, and gold, which I'm a sucker for. Those are my favorite.
And it was a brilliant decision to do that, Amy, because it went from never being able to find, but the projects that you've done in the last few months means that the last time I pulled up Author Talk on any of the podcast channels, we were at the top.
Yeah. So you guys, if Russell can find us, you can
Anybody
can. You can definitely find us. But we do go live with video on our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, and all of our social media platforms. So if you want to watch me and usually Fern, we control what comes out of our mouth, but not our facial expressions. I'm very animated and talk a lot with my hands. So if you want to have a good laugh, come on over to our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, subscribe or join our group. It's more than welcome to and interact with other authors and build your author community. That's what we love doing. We started this 8 years ago, or Russell and Sandy did, and I've kind of evolved into it. But we all started it 8 years ago, and we love doing it, love hearing from authors and everyone kind of involved in the writing community. So we thank you guys for watching us and listening to us for these 8 years with many more to come. But Zach, I know that we have your book launch tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
So I have the privilege of hosting that for you in Bridget's Gate Press. That's going to be there. And so tell us a little bit about who all you have that's going to be joining us tomorrow night.
Oh, we have some great folks. One of my best friends, Ray Knowles, who is just one of my best author buddies. She lives a short distance from me. We meet up for lunch every so often. Her book, The Stradivarius, just came out, and I had the privilege of reading and blurbing that. So that's going to be fantastic. My friend Ai Jung, who is one of the most exciting, writers out right now. She's a Nebula Awards finalist. She's like, I think everyone knows Jong at this point in the speculative community. She's got stories all over the place, including fantasy and science fiction. Her book Linghun just came out with Dark Matter Inc., and she's just one of the best writers and best people I know. Patrick Barb, another really good writer friend of mine who's been a super encouraging. He's a great guy. He's publishing all over the place himself. He's got stuff all over the place. His books, Gargantuan Ghost with Grey Matter Press, Turn with Alien Buddha Press, and Helicopter Parenting in the Age of Drone Warfare with Spooky House Press. And he's also got a book coming out with Dark Matter Inc. Patrick's just a fantastic guy, amazing writer. Wiley Young, who is one of my splatter Western idols, he just had his recent book, For a Few Souls More, which is a sequel to his Magpie Coffin, should be joining us. Also, C.S. Humble, who's a fantastic guy. He's the author of the Black Wells series and the Light Sublime trilogy, which is also a fantastic horror Western trilogy. The first was just reissued by Cemetery Dance, which is like one of the big names in horror publishing. And I'm trying to remember. And also Red Lago, who is an editor, writer. She runs Death Knell Press, and she's got stories all over the place herself. And she was actually one of the first people to publish me. She is the first person who accepted a short story of mine.
Wow.
So we got a really good group coming. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited for it.
I bet. Who's not excited for their book to come out or their novella to come out? You've worked so hard on it.
Guys, I gotta rush off screen for just a second because I have a plumbing disaster thing to fix.
You're good. But I know Bridget's Gate Press is also excited. I'm excited to I always have such fun, amazing conversations on their book launch, and I learned so much from all of you guys. And it's always such a really good time. So I'm excited. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to dive into more of it. Is it 8? It might be 7 Central.
It's 7 Central, 8 o'clock Eastern.
Okay, see, I was like, I know it's at 7, but I couldn't remember if it was Central or not because it's Central my time. So, yes, it's at 8 Eastern, you guys, 7 Central. I'm in the Central time zone. Time zones are difficult for me, Zach. I got people everywhere. So they are very difficult, but I'm super excited. I know Sarah says that she's excited for you as well. And yes, we all love Russell. We all love Russell. To many extents, for sure. But with all that being said, Zach, I'm going to kick it to Sandy, and we're going to get you talking about this book that we're launching tomorrow. Sandy, take it away.
So, Zach, is this your first book? I didn't get whether this is your first book or this. So the novella is your first book. Okay, and then the next book, then your full book, what was it? The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. When does that come out?
Well, right now that's a little in flux. Originally, we were planning for November this year, but we're kind of but Darklit is just kind of restructuring plans with the Pirate line just to get like a little more publicity and like make sure we're all getting our stuff out. So it might be released about early next year.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, Andrew, I just want to make sure though, Andrew has been amazing to work with at Darklit. Like, he is a guy who knows what he's doing. We're just making sure that we're all getting out in like the same structure to leave room for like all the authors he's got lined up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That sounds like it does sound like a lot of fun. So congratulations on your first book. Yay.
Thank you so much.
So tell me, I want to know a little bit about Zach. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, where did this come from that you decided to write a book? Have you always wanted to write a book, or have you been writing it for a while? Or tell me about this.
I have wanted to write books since I was a kid, basically. I've written some stuff that's, not like online, that's not like very public, stuff that was just my own writings. This is my first like real serious, like last year was really when I started getting serious about writing and submitting stories. There's a book that I'm kind of working on in the background with like basically my best friend. We've been working on it for a couple of years. It's this big fantasy novel. We're just finishing editing it up and we're going to start querying it. But this was really like my first big solo effort, and it really just started as a short story, honestly. This was something I had done because of the Western call. I figured I'll do like a Western horror like short story and send it out. And Brigid's Gate kind of got back to me and they said, hey, you know, we really like this. How would you like to turn it into a novella or a novelette? And I said, absolutely, I want to do that. So I pondered of like, where do I want this to go? Where do I want to start? So I started writing it. I sent it to them and they're like, it's good. Let's edit it up. And here we are.
That is great. That's a great story too. I love that story. Love that.
Can
So,
I,
why
Sandy? Can I ask
horror?
him a question about what you just asked?
Sure, go ahead, Russell.
Okay,
Then,
because
then
I'm
we
dying
want
to
to talk
ask.
about. I want to talk about the horror part of it. Okay, Russell.
Yes, and I want to know, Zach, why did you decide to write horror instead of all the courtroom wars that you are constantly involved in? Why the choice of one rather than the other?
Well, you know, for start, well, honestly, courtroom stuff is really my job. I'd like, you know, it can certainly influence it, but when I like writing, I like to escape a little. Like I like to make it exciting. And when you know all the courtroom stuff is basically your job, it doesn't get so exciting. Like sometimes I'll write, it'll be influenced. Like I'm working on one novella right now where the character is being questioned by the police and actually knows their rights and can say like, no, I'm actually invoking the Fifth Amendment right now. But I've always loved horror. I got into horror when I was a really little kid, when I was reading like R.L. Stein and all the other, you know, young reader stuff, and it just blossomed off from that. Like, you know, I love horror and sci-fi and fantasy. That's what I grew up with. Like, I love stuff like historical fiction too, and I love combining those genres. But really, like I've always, but like you know, horror's been where it's at for me. Horror and science fiction and fantasy. That's the stuff that really thrills me most.
That's I love that. I love that really because horror has just never been something that I want. To me, horror is what I remember from watching a movie that I can't sleep for days afterwards or something. And so I'm like, why do I want to read it? Because I can actually get into it even more. But since I started working with authors more, I have read some because I have a client that had one, and honestly, I've decided I really do like horror, and it's not necessarily that same stuff that I was like chainsaw murderers or something like that.
Right.
But anyway, I love that. I love you. I love the way you thought about it, and I love the idea for this story. And I told them earlier when I was reading that you're one of your protagonists. I think it's a protagonist, Siobhan. Is that one of the protagonists?
Yes, yeah, she's one of the leads.
That is my favorite female name. I love that. I remember seeing a couple of TV shows that had a person with that. And when I saw how it was spelled, I'm like, oh my God, I love that. A word that looks like that, and it's Siobhan. I love that. So,
I love
congratulations. I love it. So, tell us a little bit about the story itself.
Absolutely. So,
without giving away anything.
No problem. Kind of the basic conceit of the plot is Hungers is set a few decades after the American Civil War. It's a very, it's a changed land, it's changed America. People are expanding westward with all, with all that entails. And there is a small community that was founded by a Civil War veteran called Gray's Bluffs, and it is a small, mostly Jewish community that lives in the shadow of these mountains called the Hungers. And the reason they prosper is because of a pact with these creatures in the Hungers. So Siobhan and Esther are our heroines, and they're assigned to basically keep this pact going, to fulfill like an errand that they do like every so often, which is deliver something to the Hungers. They get some gold from the mountains, and they exchange it in town for money, and the settlement just prospers because of that. But the problem is you have all these greedy bankers and railroad companies who decide, we want this land. These people aren't selling. We can make more money if we just hire these mercenaries to wipe them out and take the town. So you have a guy named Cyril Redstone who leads a group of mercenaries to essentially slaughter the town. And war and death comes to the Hungers, and it all kind of spills over with this pact into the mountains because these creatures do not like trespassers.
Wow, that does sound interesting. I can't wait to read it. So it's available now as a pre-order. I went to Amazon and
Yes.
looked, and you can pre-order it. Well, and so tomorrow, Amy, it'll be available tomorrow. Very good. Well, I can't wait. I'm going to go get me a copy today so I can read it tomorrow when I get it. And I'll definitely be watching for the book launch tomorrow. So, Russell, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask?
Yeah.
Zach?
So, Zach, why in a Western cowboy setting did you write this book? Because
Well,
I found that interesting.
well, it's interesting. The West has always been something that's really interested me. I got when I was quite young, I was getting into spaghetti westerns, stuff like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Once Upon a Time in the West, and The Great Silence. And there's so much interesting history there, but also so much brutality. There was, the Western settler expansion, the elimination of, of human rights and the classism and the racism. There's so much to explore there through a lens of horror, in my opinion. It was real. I really started me thinking because of the short story calls when I first wrote it for. But I also wanted to explore something that wasn't commonly seen, and you don't see very much by way of Jewish characters in the West. You don't see very
Yes,
much.
that was my next question.
And I researched, I looked it up, and there was a lot of interesting stuff with Jewish people in the West. And I love the idea of kind of this vast and empty, land that people are just kind of trying to take for themselves, that has secrets in it that you haven't dreamed of, things that can't be controlled or tamed or even thought of. And some of my favorite horror stuff focuses on that. Like one of my favorite films is Ravenous, which is a great film with Robert Carlyle and Guy Pearce, which is this really creepy Western that reimagines Manifest Destiny through a lens of cannibalism and dark folklore, and creature movies like The Burrowers, which is all about the damage that the U.S. has done to the, that they've wiped out the buffalo in the West, and now it's made sure that these creatures that fed on the buffalo are now feeding on humankind. And books like Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, which is in my opinion, one of the finest, Western things ever made. I would never put myself up there with Cormac McCarthy, but it's such a terrifying and raw and brutal book, and there's just so much to explore through history and culture and horror that really gets you in the thick of it there.
So, let me ask you this question: the whole thing of the hero myth, is that something that you have as a part of your book?
You know what? Yes and no. The book, honestly, when I was thinking about it, Cyril was very inspired by characters like Frank in Once Upon a Time in the West, and Loco in The Great Silence. Like these characters who are in themselves, I would say, subversions of the Western hero. John, I was never a big fan of the John Wayne stuff. I tried to get into something like The Searchers, and I respect it for the cinematic craft, but the story just left me very cold. Cyril is a character, he's a war veteran, he's a bounty hunting mercenary. He would be kind of like the traditional hero of a lot of other Westerns, but here he's very much kind of the villain. There's a lot, I think, that presents the Western hero unquestioned in that sense that a lot of works don't really think about. I don't think I was intentionally setting out to kind of subvert that trope. Esther and Siobhan are very much like the heroes of the book. They're they're good people, and they're aware of a lot of things that transpire in the West. They're very aware of the bigotry and the racism and the classism there. I don't think there's any intentional subversion of the great man in the West kind of trope except through Cyril, who is a very intentionally villainous character. But that is a very good point. That is something that you do see a lot in the West that is very rife for kind of being subverted through the horror lens.
I love it that you can take these Western stories, which were never would I have considered horror and Westerns as to merge. Westerns were people going out and settling the land, or as you said it with John Wayne, but it was usually then the Indians, and there was a lot of horror horrible things that happen. So I can definitely see how you could take that and then from a horror perspective, then write books about it. I think that's awesome. I love that. I love the cover. Um, Hungers as old as the land. I like that title as well. So tell me about the title of the book.
The way I was really struggling with the title for this when it was a short story, and originally I was thinking of something like, "Oh, we who built this land," and then like really, I just typed a word in the story at one point, which was hungry, and it just made it click. It's the idea of it's pretty dual tone. Like the theme of hunger is very much present through the novel. Like the idea of hungering for wealth and land and riches. And that's a theme through Cyril. He's a character who's defined by hunger. Cyril is basically the manifestation of manifest destiny and the darkest parts of the American dream. He's just someone who wants wealth and power, and he doesn't care who he hurts to get it. It's like basically made clear these are these are the worst people, the people who just will step over anyone else. It doesn't matter who they want to kill, and it's made, and he's never going to be satisfied. It's just the idea of entrepreneurship through dead bodies. He's a mercenary, and he's very comfortable with what he is. But also kind of the idea of the mountains being called the Hungers, these creatures that are ancient, that were there before any humans, that and they're always hungry. Like the idea of these are these are monsters with hungers that are older than America, and you kind of have that duality of the hunger of the American dream versus these more monstrous and primal hungers of these monsters that have just existed as long as there has been the land itself.
Wow. Wow, that is great. I mean, that's a lot of thinking went into that. I'm very impressed with the book. So tomorrow is the launch.
Yes.
And then, so where can we find the book? Can we find the book other than Amazon, or is it on Amazon, just Amazon right now?
I think it's on Amazon. You can request it on Book Sirens and NetGalley still. I need a refresh of where it's actually for sale. I should probably make sure of that before everything.
It's always good for an interview to know where your book can be found.
Yes, Amazon's definitely the main place. Wednesday, that is when the paperback launch is going to go live. Right now, it's available for Kindle. But on the big release day, they put it up for paperback. I am really, really so excited, and I'm also so glad. I was got to throw some credit somewhere that you mentioned the cover art. Keelan Patrick Burke was my cover artist. He is just an incredible writer, an incredible artist, an amazing human being. I am terrible when it comes to artistic descriptions. I just gave him like some basic outline. And like a few weeks later, I get an email from Heather and Steve saying, here's your cover. Think this is, what do you think? What do you want? And I'm just like, I have no notes. This is perfect.
It is perfect. I mean, looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh.
It is it just blew me away. Like it gets the Western vibe and the monster vibe. I'm just like, no notes. This is incredible.
I love it.
It is good. It is a great.
I do have a question for you. I actually have two, and I'll probably ask them again tomorrow, but I'm dying to know. And I have you here, so I'm going to ask you.
Yes.
One, how long have you been working on this story?
So this was a story I wrote probably in the space originally of a week or two when it was a short story. And I like to joke that, I sent it one place and they rejected it. And I actually sent them a thank you letter for rejecting it when the novella was done, because that was probably the most fortuitous rejection of my life.
Right.
Wow, that was a pretty aggressive thank you note.
Yes, it is.
I was like, I just want to say, you guys said no to this story, and that means I sent it to Britain's Gate, and that's why it's a novella right now. So thank you for the awesome rejection. That's amazing. And they were really cool about it. Like they were like, we love that for you. It's it's awesome. I was like, I'm gonna pick up your Western anthology. I'm gonna love it. Absolute, like 100%. So really, when I had the novella, when I had the idea in my head, this one actually went pretty quickly. I think I started it in around, I want to say June, like probably June is when I first started writing it, and it just kind of flowed out. I was like, with the short story, I had the ending. Like, I already knew how it was going to end. I had that written. I had this whole thing. So it was really just a matter of writing to lead up to that and get the climax down and get everything, get everything that needed to be where it was. And it was just a lot of fun to write. So it probably took me a couple months and then a few more weeks to edit it, because I will give a shout out to my editor, Kenneth Kane. He is an incredible editor. He was thorough. He was decisive. He was like, it was basically like, okay, change this repetitive word choice, go through this, move this paragraph around, and at the end of it would be like, I really like this scene. Great job. So
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to work with some great people through it.
I love that. So I'm dying to know, because I always like this, and I get this from Sandy, right? Sandy says every story has its own story. So how did you come up with the idea for this short story? Is it something that just kind of hit you? Was it just evolving? What is the premise for that?
I'm very much someone who figures things out while I'm writing. Usually I will have the idea in my head, and then I'll start putting words to page, and I'll just be like, oh, this is how this character would act. And this is how, like, I'll get, or this is giving me an idea here. But I really wanted to do something with, like, once again, I wanted it to be Jewish, because I being as a Jewish person, I think there's not enough Jewish rep in horror and sci-fi fantasy. So I really wanted it to be like a Jewish horror Western.
Okay.
And I wanted to have the idea of, this is kind of going through the Westerns that I really liked. Because like I said, I love stuff like Corbucci and Leone and, people and movies like The Great Silence and A Town Called Hell and Requiescat and, all these like spaghetti Westerns. So I wanted it to have like a cinematic feel like that. Like, let's present something villainous of these mercenaries and who are trying to wipe out this town and introduce it with a horror twist. So that was really what got to me when I was writing it. Let's present it that way. Let's make sure that it is kind of fun in a sense, like, give it a sense of fun and horror and darkness and throw some cool monsters in there. And I was very careful. Like, I wanted these to be original monsters. I think, I wanted to make sure, like, these aren't folklore creatures. These are creatures that just come from my imagination. And it was a lot more fun to write. It made them a lot creepier.
Right. No, I could see that kind of coming up with your own and taking that creative spin on it and letting your imagination fly. So what was the moment for you where you were like, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I want to write? Right? You said that you kind of let it evolve as you start writing. You have an idea, and then you let it kind of take, bloom as its own kind of flower thing. So what was that moment where you're like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write, and this is what I'm going to write, and it's just going to come? Like, for me, right, I work with authors, and I have no desire to write a story because I know all the time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. So I'm like, I'm just going to live through you guys, right? So what was that moment, that pivotal moment for you where you're like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write it, and then I'm going to send it out and see what traction it gets?
And it was a lot of thinking. I had the idea in my head. I just kind of came up with the name of Cyril Redstone as the villain. So I just kind of sat down and I just had the idea of the first line. And from there, it was just, it just kind of flowed from there. It was like, let's make this as a brutal and dark and, like grim opening of like this post massacre when you're dealing with this aftermath. And then, when I was writing the first line of the book, I just decided, you know what, I need to set this during the, I have a prologue, it's set during the Civil War. I just decided, like, let's get this idea of just this brutal and bloody and dark battle, and like it just all flowed from there. And from that point, it was, all right, now we flash forward a few, like, let's introduce these heroines, let's meet them, let's get into their heads, let's see what makes them tick. And sometimes it's really just a matter of, okay, I got to force myself to write, just put the words down. It doesn't matter if it's rambling, just try to get something in. You can smooth it out and fix it later. That's really how it went down, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. So are you going to continue, to write? I know that you said that you have another book that might be coming out next year. It's kind of in flexibility mode, as I like to call it right now. So are you working on anything right now? Are you going to stick within horror? Do you think you're ever going to branch out and test the waters somewhere else? Or, what do you have going on?
Well, absolutely. Right now, after this launch, I actually have another book coming out in June, which is with Off Limits Press, called The Long Shalom, which is a Jewish pulp detective cosmic horror novella, which is going to, I have the cover art, everything set up. That's going to be a blast. It is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Right now, I'm always working on stuff. I have a few novellas I'm trying to shop around. I have one in consideration at one place right now. Fingers crossed. I have another novella I'm working on. I have another I want to start soon. I have a bunch of short stories that I'm shopping about. I have a few I'm writing right now. There's one I just finished last night that I have to edit. I've got some stuff coming out in just various anthologies and publications. I'm really excited for one in the Deadlands, which is one of my favorite magazines. I've got one in the anthology Shakespeare Unleashed, which I'm a Shakespeare fanatic, so I am super proud of that one. And right now,
wow, Zach, we have so much in common. Oh my gosh.
Earlier in the interview, Zach, we would have talked of nothing else.
It is a book of Shakespeare.
Talk about Shakespeare.
It is a book of Shakespeare horror stories and sonnets. I have read it. I read my contributor copy. It is such a good book, and I wrote a story called The Hungry Wives of Windsor. So that is going to be a blast. And right now, like kind of my big secret project is, like I mentioned earlier, my friend and I are working on this huge fantasy novel. It's, we're hoping to make it like one of our big debuts. We are getting it. We are polishing it up. We are hoping to go on sub with it. It's something that we spent like a few years on now. Like even before I was writing solo, we were working on this. And we got a few things in the works for that. So, keeping those fingers really crossed for it. So I've always got stuff going on. I'm either shopping stories around or writing new ones. My sister's wedding has been tying up a lot of time. I'm still working on things here and there.
That darn wedding, when it's over, you'll have more time to write. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I was going to say, Zach, where do you find time to be a lawyer?
Oh my God, I don't even know. It's like I'm writing in the evenings and on the weekends. And yesterday I just kind of sat down. I'm like, this horror story I'm working on isn't going to finish itself. Just do a burst and finish it up. And I finished it up. And now I'm like waiting for some beta on it, and then I'm sending it out to a few places.
Yeah, I like that you said, you have this project you've been working on for years that's fantasy, and yet you're writing all of these novellas and, contributing to anthologies of horror and stuff. And I know fantasy novels take a really long time. I mean, especially if you're world building and all of that. So, well, look at you. That's amazing. And we've unleashed Russell when you mentioned Shakespeare. Like, that would have been the whole 45-minute conversation.
Yeah, I'd have ruined the show by wanting to argue about Shakespearean points with you.
I'm always down for talk. Look, for anyone watching, pick up Shakespeare Unleashed. James Accolone, the editor, was fantastic to work with. There's incredible writers in there. Gwendolyn Keast opens it with a Julius Caesar short story that is unbelievable. There's stuff by people like John Palisano and Seanan McGuire, and just incredible interpretations of all kinds of the Shakespeare theme, like traditional or subversions and stuff set in the classic plays and modern times. And I did one that's a horror story on the Merry Wives of Windsor, which I was like, I sat there when I was like, I need to do a play that no one else is going to do, so it makes me stand out a little more. And apparently it worked.
Okay,
well, congratulations! You definitely have a new career going for you here as an author, and and working with all these different publishers is really going to get you some exposure as well, especially when you're working with Amy and with Nikki. So I see great things in your future. Great things.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I want to give a shout out to my novel partner. His name is Gabe Cron. He is a fantastic person, fantastic partner. And God willing, we're going to be able to share this novel with the world in the in the near future.
Wow, that's amazing. Zach, so it's been great to meet you, Zach. Great to talk to you. I'm gonna give it back to Amy because she'll need a few minutes.
I'm gonna talk to
I've got to ask another writer question. I can't help
it. Please.
So why do you write novellas instead of novels? Now, there's a good reason, but I want to know, what is your reason?
In a lot of cases, there's no straight reason. Sometimes I find novellas a little easier to do. Like I can set myself all right, here's a story I can tell in a certain amount of pages that, might not necessarily need to be a full novel. Just keep it short, keep it fun, keep it involving. And, it also allows me okay, I have this idea, I can get through it and move on to the next. The pirate one that I have coming out with Darklit is a full novel. It's really just a matter of what suits the length of the story sometimes. What can I tell in these pages? If I feel it needs to be longer, then I'll just go for something longer.
Well, I've read that current readers are looking for smaller books. They don't want as thick a novel to buy as they used to.
Yeah, and that's why I think novellas are really also making a comeback. It is really, it's really just a matter of, like you said, people wanting, like they want to get through. There's so many books out there. They want to get through stuff, relatively quickly. Unless you're like an established name putting out like a huge fantasy book. I find that horror is also really good for. I think horror is something very suited to the short term because with a novella you can deliver something quick and biting, and you can flesh out the characters. And I just find it a lot of fun to write novellas.
Well, from a reader standpoint, I do like shorter books, so I feel like I've accomplished something, and it's not like tower, climbing Mount Everest, and I'm halfway up, and I'm like, damn, I'm not gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? So I like the shorter ones, especially if someone, a mom that has little kids that I can kind of read in a couple days and complete, and it's not going to take me months since I don't have a whole lot of free time to do that. So from a reader standpoint, that's why I prefer shorter books or audiobooks. Completely honest.
I'm really a fan of, what a book should be just as long as it needs to be to tell its story. Like The Long Shalom, like so many of these detective stories. Of course, we're short and quick and to the point in novellas, and I just had a lot of. The Long Shalom is one of the most fun things I've ever written. It was just an absolute blast to write. And I think it tells a pretty decent story within a certain amount of pages. Like I kept some mystery on, you get the fun pulp aspects and action, and I think the same for Hungers. I'm sure some people disagree and will say, like, one of the most common criticisms I've seen is like, oh, it should have been longer to flesh out some of the stuff. And I'm like, you know what? That's actually not a bad point. I'm actually kind of happy that, the biggest criticism is this should have been more.
They want more.
It's a great thing to hear from your fans.
Yeah, and like honestly, anyone who takes the time to read it, whether it is praise or criticism, I'm just glad they took the time to read it. Honestly, I'm really grateful for all the feedback I've gotten.
No, I love it. And so you guys, with that being said, the greatest thing that you can ever do for any reader or any author that you read is to leave them a review. Good, bad, it makes them better writers. Good reviews make them excited that you've read their work. And if it's a bad review, it makes them better writers. So it's definitely the greatest thing that you can ever do for any author. So with all that being said, Zach, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy morning to come and speak with us and have a lot of fun. I'm excited for your book launch tomorrow at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. I got my time this time for sure.
So excited.
Yeah, but you guys, we hope everybody has a fantastic Monday, a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you all next Monday. Bye, everybody.